From the Black Swan Media Studios, deep inside a secret underground bunker, we're speaking to freedom-loving patriots from all around the country and the world. Welcome to the Resistance. This is John Crump, live.
It is definitely John Crump live. My name is John Crump, and I am your host for the evening. Today, we're going to be talking to one of our favorite, I don't want to call her a politician because I honestly don't think that she's a politician. I think she is more of a woman of the people of the people. And yeah, this shirt you can get on Black Swan Tactical. It's the Gorillas and Guns shirt. Gorillas and Guns is really cool. We have New Zealand's in the house again. I don't think New Zealand's here. That was interesting. But yes. So let's go and bring on Rich, my co-host.
Hey,
Alan Powell. The two intros is one's a video intro, and the second one is for my podcast, the audio only. But we run two intros because the audio only.
So the audio only people don't get to see my 50 cal in the background.
Nope. They do not get to see your 50 cal. We are on the Firearms Radio Network. So if you want to listen to us, go Firearms Radio Network, or you can find John Crump live on your favorite podcasting platforms. And sorry, I'm a little bit late. I'm working on a, I would say a story that is insane. Like I'm talking about like groundbreaking. I don't know if I'm going to be the first one to break it, but I have a lot of information that a lot of people don't, and I think I might have found the reason, and I am just I think I'm on the right track of finding the story behind the story. So people might report the story, but I don't think they're going to report the story behind the story, which is the big story.
Is it something I know?
I can't spill the bean, Alan. It's not ready yet. It's still.
I'm not asking you to spill the beans. I'm just wondering if it's a story I know.
No, I'm talking about Alan. I told you to look into it.
Okay.
But then I got assigned to look into it, and I started digging, and the rabbit hole goes deep.
Okay.
Very deep. So it's going to probably change the firearms world landscape. Put it that way. All right. With all that said, let's bring on Melissa Martz, who's been waiting patiently behind the scenes. Rich crashed his own subcomp. Yeah.
Ouch.
We kind of figured out what that was, and we've been trying to. Oh, hold on. We got a celebrity, Eli EDC. Eli, when you want to come on the show, let me know. I would love to get you on the show. I saw that Eli has some co-defendants now.
Yeah, let Melissa know who Eli is.
Eli is one of the lead plaintiffs in the case in North Dakota, challenging the ATF's new rule on
frames and receivers. that was joined by 17 attorney generals, 17 states attorney
17
generals.
states are now plaintiffs besides Eli. So Eli's name went out. Eli's name is out on Fox News and everywhere else. And Eli, when we talked, same with the gun company up there. I said, hey, just to let you know, you might get a lot of press. So Eli, you need to come on the show. You can bring Steven with you or Rob, but Rob's not going to come on.
Anyhow, we didn't properly introduce Melissa Martz.
Hopefully, everyone say hi to Eli out there and say thank you to Eli.
Thanks, Eli.
Hi. Thank you, Eli. And also, I have to say, I love you too, Dark. But mostly what I love is what I've heard about your followers. And that we have many more patriots than we realize out there, even more than Eli. God bless his soul for standing up in the public eye like that for what's right.
Yeah, Dark once told me, he's like, if I wasn't married, I would look for a woman like Melissa.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's like, if I was a man, I wouldn't marry me. I would want somebody a little stupider. It's like a trade-off, you know? I would want somebody that was just a little more dumbed down, I think, as a woman, but I'll take the compliment.
Nah.
Yeah. So, how are you doing in Florida? How's the battle going?
Well. I mean, I'm an eternal optimist. I only know to be that way. So from my perspective, I don't know if I'm the best person to ask, but from my perspective, I see that our army is strong. We have a lot of patriots in this district, a lot of people that are, walking into their sovereignty and taking back their thought process. Instead of kind of just phoning it in for elections, people are starting to actually vet candidates. So from that perspective, especially as a grassroots candidate, things are going very well. On the other side of that coin, there is still an immense amount of pushback from the Republican establishment and an immense amount of censorship. I also do have a little story that I will share if you would like me to share. I think
sure.
I shared in part about we've got a new person running in the race.
I've heard something about this. Why don't you tell everyone?
Yeah, sure, I will, because I haven't spoken too much about it publicly, but I do think it's important that people know to understand kind of what you were saying. I don't know what you're talking about. I thought maybe, how deep does the rabbit hole go? I thought maybe you have some new information about Joe Biden's cancer. Sorry.
No.
Like it really was from the oil. But how deep does this rabbit hole go? I mean, this has been an education. My running for a year and a half for me has been an education that the corruption is much deeper, much more multi-layered. I say all of my heroes have fallen. I don't think I have one hero left in the game. But so what happened a couple of weeks ago, I was sat down by a gentleman that was running for Congress, for U.S. Congress in a neighboring district. And I don't know how long he was running in that district. My guess is 6 months to a year he had been running in this district for U.S. Congress. So I knew him just superficially from, seeing him at political events. And he invited me to a meeting, which I thought was going to be about election integrity. But when I got there, it was him and 3 other men. So about 4 men, mostly in suits, that sat me down and told me that he had been given money by a group of Republicans to come into the race that I'm running. And they were there to ask me to back out and to publicly endorse him. And that if I did this, they would offer me a position on his team if he got into DC. So I, very diplomatic terms, told them absolutely not. I've been running in this district for well over a year, making relationships in this district with people that worked very hard to get me on their ballot. We didn't get on the ballot with $10,000. I raised over 2,600 signatures, and that was with the help of a lot of patriots in the district. So there's a lot of people that are expecting and are wanting my name on their ballot. It would be, in my opinion, unethical for me to just back out a couple of months before the election because somebody gave this guy a bunch of money, which is the second reason I said no, because as it stands now, most of our politicians, the people that are supposed to represent us, they're bought and paid for. They are not chosen by the people. They are chosen with money. And I would want nothing to do with somebody's money choosing our representation for us. So I, of course, declined and wished him well. And also, you know, as I was sitting there for, I don't know, about an hour, one by one, they each took their turn trying to convince me why I had no chance and how I should drop out. And I looked at them and I said, you know, if everything you say is true and I really have no chance, then there was really no point in meeting with me here today. You don't need to ask me to back out. You know, you will do fine. So that was I wish I could say surprising. I tend not to be surprised anymore about the lack of character and integrity out there in the world. But
Wow.
yeah, very, very eye-opening, you know, that this is what goes on in races.
Yeah, I was dealing with a political candidate and had a pretty big check, and I was asking for them to go on record for guns. And I said, we're willing to get behind you, push you, you know, fund your campaign, pick commercials on whatever, but we need to have you publicly state this is what you're going to do. And their answer was, well, we'll tell you behind the scenes that's what we're going to do. We can make agreements, but we don't want to go public. But if you do give us your money and your support, we'll promise you behind the scenes that we will do this. And my answer was no.
Yeah, well, I
So
mean, that's why I haven't taken any on purpose. I haven't gone after or taken any PAC money, special interest group money. Like when I say that I stand for our Second Amendment and our Constitution, if people look at my FEC reporting, that's coming from me. That's, you know, that's my character. That's what I stand for. I'm not bought and paid for in any direction. And that was really important to me, that integrity and being part of the change that we want to see in this system was really important to me. And to have that come in, you know, a couple of months before election day, it, you know, it's just kind of, for me, it fueled the fire. It drove home for me why we have to win, why we have to try even harder, because everywhere you turn, and this person really believed they were doing, as far as I could tell, seemed to think they were doing the right thing, you know. But this, I say, if you compromise on the at this stage in the game, you're going to compromise when you get in, because if you take money now, when you get in, you'll take the money for something else. You know, that's just the way that it is. That's the person's character. So, and the other piece that I found interesting, I still don't know who it is that allegedly gave them this money, but they said that part of the attachment to this money is that when he gets in, or if he gets in, he's supposed to hire a team made up of people that were in the military. So, you know, you're given a budget as a Congress person to have to staff, and whoever he hires is supposed to have a military background, which I found a little concerning. Maybe why would they want to have military power up there in Congress as staff members? So it was all very concerning. And that's why I think the American people should know.
Yes, I definitely do. I just posted on my news channel about this, so I do have the picture, but I'm waiting a little bit until we get a little bit more people in here.
So the district, they got redrawn, right? So what district are you running for?
So now the new number is 21. So now I'm running in what is new District 21. It used to be called District 18. Boundary lines changed all over Florida. We had new districting, but District 18 didn't really change that much.
Okay.
The south part of the district, the boundary line for the south part drops a little bit in some places, but for the most part, if you were in 18 initially, you're also in 21. I mean, people can look up the map. It's kind of difficult to follow, but if you were in 18, you're likely still in 21.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, John.
You're running against Brian Mast, right?
Yes, I say I'm running for the American people. I am running a primary against Brian Mast, who I know you are well aware has not been strong on the Second Amendment. The opposite of that actually has come after our Second Amendment and has written an opinion piece in the New York Times stating that none of us should be allowed to own an AR-15. So, if people don't want a federal ban of the AR-15 or somebody that leans that way to try to infringe on our Second Amendment right, then we need to vote differently. And that's just, the end of the story.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to get that out there, who you're running against. And I was going to highlight the piece in the New York Times, but you already taken care of that for me.
Sorry.
Unbelievable.
Your thunder, I'm sorry.
No, Brian Maft is enemy of gun owners.
I have the PDF on my website, so sometimes when people go to look for the article, there'll be like a pop-up that you need to pay for something. But I have the PDF version of, this is his opinion piece. These are his words. It's a page and a half. I have it on my website for those that want to fact check. We absolutely should be fact checking. I say, don't take my word for it. Do your own vetting, your own fact checking. But I've made it a little easier where I do have the information along with some other interesting things right there on my website for everyone to look at. That was actually not the most egregious thing I think he's done, in my personal opinion, but it's up there. It's one of the reasons I chose to run in this district.
Yeah, and you've taken a lot of kickback for your pro-gun stance, correct?
Yes, there has been immense amount of support, specifically for an ad that I've put up, again, from the people, from the Patriots. And then there has been pushback mostly from the media and really I would say the extreme left-leaning folks. So yeah, there definitely has been some pushback on that. And it's really sad, to be honest. It's quite sad, because if you look at the photo and you read what it says, it's a woman protecting in the photo. And yet when people look at it that are extremely brainwashed or have fallen prey to the propaganda around the conversation about firearms, around that conversation, they just see somebody that wants to hurt children. And it's very, very concerning. Yeah, very concerning how deep that brainwashing goes.
Yeah, and a firearm makes a woman equal. And I mean, I know you're not a large, muscular person. You're quite the opposite. And a firearm makes everybody equal.
Just kidding. I actually have drawn my firearm as a single mother to protect my 10-month-old baby in my home. So that's another. God bless you. Yeah. So, I don't know if I shared that story the last time I was on or not, but the photo, that's the other kind of attack that people want to say, like, oh, it's just propaganda or what. No, I actually lived that. It was a smaller firearm. I didn't pull the AR-15. That is my AR-15, which I don't shoot. We have plenty of firearms. When the apocalypse comes, my husband will be shooting the AR-15, but it is my AR-15. It was a smaller firearm that I held to protect my 10-month-old baby, but that is a scenario that I actually lived. However, that's not even what our Second Amendment right is for. It really has everything to do with having the same weaponry as our government in case we need to overthrow our government, which is how our entire country was started. You just can't get away from the history and the intent behind that Second Amendment. So it's just, again, really has been eye-opening. I hope that this photo has started the conversation, which I think it has. I mean, you can see in that picture, I say it's like a live Facebook feed, an in-person Facebook feed. The person that's written on the sign is bringing attention to school shootings. And then somebody's added their own sign, bringing attention to hard facts about how, when we have armed guards, everybody's safer and we have less gun deaths. I hope at least that.
Can I point out one thing?
Of course.
The rare site is on backwards.
Thank you. Thank you. You're not the only one who's pointed out a few different things about how I wasn't doing this, that, or the other, right? Yes, I thank you. Again, I don't shoot my AR-15. I have it, really is for my husband, but I do shoot other firearms, and the firearm I carry is very tiny. Because as you pointed out, I'm tiny, and I joke and say I need to get a boob job to be able to conceal my weapon properly.
And demonetized. We're already demonetized, so it doesn't even matter.
I thought as long as I stay away from the V word, we're good.
No, we've already been demonetized, so whatever.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that.
No, that's not because of you. Okay.
Nah, it happens.
That just happens sometimes, so whatever. Yeah, so that is an interesting ad, and it has kicked up a bunch of controversy everywhere. In fact, if you watched yesterday's hearings, they were talking about ads with children and how
Oh
that should
gosh.
be illegal. What? Yeah, I saw the look in your face. That's exactly what the look on my face was yesterday when they brought that up.
So they keep
And-
postulating that gun
and-
manufacturers are advertising to children. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
It's like, yeah, that's a baby, so.
Right. Well, I don't think there's anything in my ad that's advertising to children.
No,
Well, then
and
they
it
can
was
say
I
and
I
they also said gun safety, teaching
There-
kids gun safety is
I was going to say at the same
advertising.
time, there's plenty. I mean, I've taught my child's shoots a firearm, knows gun safety, knows how to shoot a firearm, and is prepubescent. And I know plenty of people that were shooting at the tender age of 5 years old. And
Yeah.
and then went off to go serve our country as adults. So, I mean, these are people that know how to use firearms, that were trained properly from the time they were young. So there's got to be an appropriate way to, not that you're advertising to children, but children do use firearms. So to just say that, just put it like a blanket, kids and firearms should be completely separate. I think it's really the opposite if we're talking about gun safety. I mean, we want to educate our children so that if they, like, I feel very comfortable that if my child comes across a firearm in some scenario, I feel really comfortable that he knows what to do in that situation, because we haven't just kept it from him and made it the scary thing that you don't talk about. We've instilled knowledge and respect for the firearm. So that the premise for not wanting to advertise to children or demonizing that is just wrong to begin with.
Yeah, I totally agree.
When I got my first gun, I showed my daughter. I brought it home. She was 5 years old. Don't ever touch a firearm. If you see a firearm wherever you go, don't touch it. Make sure nobody else touches it, and find an adult. And I told her, hey, basics of firearm safety. You always treat a gun as though it's loaded. Don't ever point it at anybody or anything you're not willing to destroy. Always know your target and what's behind it. And she was well aware of that when she was 5 years old.
Yeah, I definitely see how that is, and I've done the same thing with my kids. I think yesterday when they were talking about that they were trying to just demonize the gun companies.
Yeah, nobody's advertising to kids.
Improperly advertising firearms to children. It is every mainstream violent movie and video game. That is who should be held accountable for not properly advertising weapons to children. I mean, that is really, there's more of a case to be made there that this stuff is getting before kids in a way that's not healthy or good. But your average gun manufacturer, unless there's an ad I haven't seen, I mean, they want to sell guns. So I highly doubt that anyone is intentionally, misadvertising to children. Instead, they should be or would be promoting gun safety, because that's a bad look, right? So I think the real bad look is the culture we've endorsed with gun violence, which is different than being the hero and the protector. So and also I do want to address the other side of the argument a little bit, because this is a conversation that has obviously been hijacked, and we only get to have a one-way street conversation in mainstream media, which is, guns are bad and we want to make laws that infringe on law-abiding citizens, and that's how we're going to stop mass shooters and mass shooting events. And the reality is that we do have a gun violence issue in America. But the problem is not with our Second Amendment, and it's not with our law-abiding citizens. We very much have a mental health issue in this country. And I have been sharing these stats pretty frequently, but I'd like to share them again for those that may not be aware. But the rough stats are for every 10 gun deaths, 6 of them are suicides. Of those remaining 4, the majority are Black on Black crime, which is often gang related. And then we have another staggering stat of about 70 women a month are assaulted in some way with a firearm by an intimate partner, which is a domestic violence issue. And yet we are not allowed to have the conversation around mental health and what that looks like, because you can legislate all day long, and you're not addressing this mental health issue. Why do so many people want to kill themselves in America? I mean, like, why is that happening? You can take guns away, and people still don't want to live in this country. So, not that I have a panacea for that, or we're gonna solve that problem today, but I just want to draw attention to, there is a real conversations to be had, but we're just not able to have it, because I believe there is an agenda to disarm the American people, like we've seen historically and across the world.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I don't think we have a gun violence problem. I think we have a violence problem
Yes.
and a mental health
No,
problem. Joe
more
Rogan.
interesting. Oh, okay. Yeah, we got a question here. One Car Fast is asking if Melissa carries a SIG. I don't know if you want to share what you carry.
Well, it's just a little tiny Ruger. It's like the size of my hand.
LP.
So like the LCP2 or?
I'm not sure. I have to go grab it.
Okay. So the stat, there's more homicides in England and there's more suicides in England, and they don't have firearms. They beat you to death. They bludgeon you to death.
And
I'll take a bullet.
Yeah, I think they have knives there as well, I've heard.
And they're looking for knife control.
Right. So, I mean, it's illogical, but for some reason we're not allowed to have a conversation based on logic around the gun issue. But
if you took 60% of the gun violence away by curing the mental health issue, then what are they going to have to cry about? If this is what they're saying, they're like, look at all of these gun deaths and gun violence, as they say. Right. And if 60% disappear because you cure the problem, then they have much less of a campaign.
Joe Rogan always says that we have a mental health issue disguised as a gun issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 100%. And I mean, just misinformation as well, which is why I like to share the stats, and people can go fact check that.
Oh, sure.
But so that ad garnered me a little bit of media attention, which has been very hard for my campaigns to get. Nobody seems to want to report that I'm running, but that ad did help a little bit. I knew I would be contacted, and the light would be shed in like a biased way, but that was okay. As long as we get the message out, it didn't matter to me. However, I think it was WPTV Channel 5 local news. They did a little piece, and the actual 6 o'clock news, it was like a quick little piece, but it was completely slanted, and they had a mother on there with a baby saying how the weapon that I have in my ad is what the majority, or is what all mass shootings are committed with. Patently false information, just not true. And it's actually not even close. The majority of gun violence is with handguns. So we also just have extreme misinformation just put out there en masse, and people believe it if they don't take the time to fact check. So yes, we have a mental health crisis. We also have a crisis in our media and our world, where people are just really at this point being willfully brainwashed. There's an extreme amount of ignorance plus intentional brainwashing.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but they did put the full interview out. So I have to say, they put it on their YouTube. So if anybody wants to see that, it's like 13 minutes long, but they did, that was actually quite credible, even though they chopped it up for the 6 o'clock news. They did put on their YouTube channel the full interview, which was really.
Yeah, I was surprised they actually put the whole interview out. So that was good.
The reporter was quitting. He was on his way out. So honestly, I think that was divine God intervention, that he ended up putting the whole thing out there for people to see.
So other than guns, what is some of your other issues in your campaign?
Yes. Okay. So, well, I'll give you just my brief platform, and then I'll go into a little bit of detail of what I would like to accomplish when I get in. So my platform is a return to the protection of our constitutional rights. So that is actually the role of government, is to protect our individual liberties, not for handouts and social welfare programs or to make us feel good, but it is really just to protect our individual liberties. So all 5 of our constitutional rights protected under the First Amendment have been violated, continue to be violated by our federal government. So I'd like to push back against that. Of course, our Second Amendment as well has been infringed upon, continues to be infringed upon. And then second part of my platform is a return to government minimalism. So that means that I support Congressman Massey's bill. He's tried to get this bill passed 3 times, which is to abolish the U.S. Department of Education. It's an unconstitutional federal body, which in these last 2 years, I could go into detail, they have absolutely overstepped and overreached right here in Palm Beach County where I live, but all over the United States.
I live in Loudoun County, Virginia.
Okay. Well, so it would have been, so basically what the U.S. Department of Education did over the pandemic was that they created something called the SAFE program, where they were with money incentivizing, so your school district, my school district, to push vaccines by creating vaccine centers at the schools, push masks, a whole laundry list of things that if the school boards would push these things, then our federal government was giving them money. So completely usurping the governor, the people, the parents. And that's why we should have never had a U.S. Department of Education to begin with. It's not written in the Constitution. It's not delegated out to them. Education remains with the states, the people, states' rights. So as a government minimalist, I would like to get rid of the U.S. Department of Education, repeal the 16th Amendment, which is how we are unconstitutionally taxed. Abolish
17th also.
Yes, I understand there. I mean, there's a lot to be done. But I would say if it would be so amazing. It would change all of our lives, right? If we could get control of spending and get us back to the role of what the federal government actually is supposed to be doing. And then
you want to tell people what the 16th Amendment is, or do you want me to? Or
it's how they tax us on our income, federal income tax, basically.
Yeah, which there's some controversy whether it was actually legally passed or not.
Correct. And it's not the only amendment, which Rich is pointing out. It's not the only amendment that is claimed to not have been ratified. But I'd say that's a biggie. I mean, that would solve so many problems for all of us if we were able to, go back to our Constitution just in that one respect. But also abolishing the AATF, which I understand touches on our gun rights. But again, it's an unconstitutional body. They keep a list of all of us law-abiding citizens who have lawfully bought firearms of what we bought. So somebody else knows better what my gun is. I apologize.
So
the government knows what I have. Maybe call them. I've got a few.
So you're more of a constitutionalist than
100%.
just a straight Second Amendment absolutist. So you're
yes.
Absolute constitutionalist.
Yes, and what's crazy to me is that somehow that has become what people would call fringe or extreme, but these are our founding documents, our Constitution with our Bill of Rights, our Declaration of Independence. This is what we're founded on. It's the highest law of the land, and everything must fall in line with that. So we've come so far from that we think it's normal. Amen. So it really should be, I mean, we should all be constitutionalists unless we're going to get together and change the Constitution or move to other countries. So yes, I want to return to what our founding fathers intended because we've gotten so far from it and it's not serving the American people well. We are on the verge of losing our republic, losing our freedoms, losing our liberties, and really looking like every other country and worse in many cases. I mean, it's possible that we could look just as bad or worse. I mean, some things have happened in this country that it's hard for me to digest and believe. I mean, that's why I'm running. I look at some things and I go, how is this America? There was that video going around of the ATF knocking on someone's door in Delaware, asking them for proof of their firearm ownership. I mean, how is that America?
Oh.
How could that possibly be what our founders intended?
John bought 20 pistols from PSA and he's having them delivered to 4 different FFLs. And he's buying 5 pistols from 4 different FFLs each to bait the ATF to come to his house because he's got cameras everywhere. Yeah,
one of the places like, oh, we got your revolvers, and I was like, well, I need to wait for my other ones coming in. They're like, yeah, more coming here. I'm like, no, the other FFLs. I'm like, what are you doing? They got kind of suspicious, but they know me. So I told them, they're like, oh God, okay, just call us when you're ready to pick them up.
Well,
we may be seeing John in the news.
No,
but I don't blame you. You know, if you have it in you, if you feel called to make that stand, you know, we do have to start start standing up again. This is why I'm running. I say we'll either pay on the front end or the back end. I'd rather pay on the front end, preserve the republic for my children and the other American children, than when they do come to our door for other reasons. So I don't blame you for doing that. The last part of my platform is to put an end to child trafficking. So specifically at the border, the federal government does have.
Rich, I got an emergency. I'm going to go on mute for a second.
Okay.
All right. Do you want me to keep
going?
Keep talking? Okay. John can handle his emergency. Let us know if you need help. So before I ever decided to run, I was working to bring awareness to and to do my part for victims of child sex trafficking. Well, at the border, our federal government is absolutely delegated out to protect that border. And they've done a terrible job, obviously, under this administration. It's just out of control. But what's really out of control that's happening at the border, obviously, we do have, of course, weapons coming through. We have, of course, criminals coming through, and we have drugs coming through, fentanyl. But I would say the most egregious is the labor and sex trafficking of women and children and men, but specifically children. And I've mentioned it before, but we have a congressman who has openly joked about having sex with kids. How can we expect these people to care about these children across our border in both ways, by the way? And so that is a huge part of what I intend to work on when I get in, not just shoring up our border, but also I'd like to see much stricter penalty for anyone that facilitates child trafficking. Our government has had a hand in allowing and facilitating child trafficking at our border, and there should be the same penalty for those in government as anyone else that has a hand in this.
There's so many tragedies happening on our southern border, and it's there's what they call rape trees, where the coyotes that are taking women and girls across rape the girls and throw their underwear in the tree. There's, like you said, child trafficking. Well, first it's the cartels, the drug cartels, that are the coyotes bringing all of these people into the country. So while if the Democrats think it's a great thing to have an open border, to have these people in the country, they're funding the cartels, who are not good people. I mean, why would you, I'm very libertarian, and if you want to smoke pot or snort coke or whatever, good for you. That's your business for the most part. I don't care what you do. But I think a great reason not to do drugs or not to do these types of things is because people are getting shot and killed over the manufacture, transport, etc. over it. Plus, you don't know if they're putting fentanyl in whatever, illegal drug you're getting. And the people that are doing the transport of drugs aren't good people to start with. So why would you want to put money in these people's hands, which is beyond ridiculous?
Well, and if you're using your brain to look at it, yes, it's beyond ridiculous. And then you have to ask why, because it's so egregious, it's so blatant that it is impossible for a thinking person to believe that this is just ignorance or happenstance. It seems very intentional. I mean, it is very intentional. Our borders have been intentionally allowed to be open. And not only that, but our government, our federal government, at the behest of our executive branch, has paid to plane and bus in these people coming in from the border into our country, into many other states, including Florida. And, our governor has tried to push back against that. Those are the only two governors I've heard that are actually is Governor Abbott in Texas and Governor DeSantis in Florida that are actually pushing back on the influx of people that are being sent to their states. But, we, the states, at this point, I mean, it kind of feels like we're on our own. I know Governor Abbott has said that he's starting to build the wall on their dime. But really, I think there needs to be some kind of concerted effort amongst the states if our federal government isn't going to pick up the ball. I mean, if I get in, that's what I'll be trying to do, is to ally with other like-minded congressmen to secure our border. But until that happens, we have an absolute emergency. I mean, it's not just like you say, you know, all these terrible things happening at the border. It's affecting the lives of American people. I mean, we're looking at inflation that comes from the overspending. It's not just overspending on Ukraine. I mean, there's also money. There was formula sent to the to the border. You know, I mean, like we're sending money and supplies to everyone but Americans. It's insane, and people should be outraged. They should be outraged to the point of doing something about it. I mean, we the people really need to stand up and take our country back, because it's mayhem at the moment. It couldn't be any clearer for a thinking person that it's absolute mayhem.
So we got a question for you. If elected, would you vote to look into Hunter Biden's laptop?
Yes, I would very much call for that. As a matter of fact, it's my understanding from some other sources that, I mean, I know we know this now, I think a little more publicly, but the DOJ absolutely had access to that laptop and chose not to prosecute, not to move forward, and so did the FBI. And I knew that for a while, and I was just beside myself. I mean, again, when I say all my heroes have fallen, in every branch of government, every body of government is just, it's tainted, it's corrupted. Not to say there aren't good people. Of course, you know, there's a mix often of good people and bad people. But it is disgusting. Every single person that laptop touched at the DOJ, at the FBI, these people should be jailed. I mean, if the allegations are true that first of all, traitor to our country was trading the American people, plus if there really is pedophilia, evidence of pedophilia on this laptop. I mean, every single person that did not act in the name of justice on behalf of these children because they were told not to by the executive branch of the White House, they should be penalized greatly, whether that's, you know, jail or execution, because it's so egregious. It is absolutely so egregious. So yes, I would vote for that, but I would be piloting that movement. I would be petitioning for that, because as a person, as an American, I've been so disgusted from the very beginning, you know, knowing that for so long. I've had things happen where, you know, locally, things I've seen where I thought, you know, and I did my due diligence. Okay, you've reported to the FBI having to do with children. But at the same time, I'm like, why would I feel comfortable reporting to the FBI when these people are in on it, whether that's just by turning a blind eye or, God help us, you know, some of them may actually be in on it. We know from the reporting Project Veritas, they had a whistleblower at the border that exposed that our government has a hand in child trafficking. So yes, 100%, whatever I can do when I get in, and even if I don't get in, I'll be doing whatever I can do to try to help expose that.
So we got a follow-up question on that. Do you firmly believe there can ever be true accountability? Because I feel we're past the point of no return with those leading the country honestly.
Yes, I think we're at the precipice. I think if we don't get a hold of it now, which I think has a lot to do with our 2022 elections, then I don't know if we can ever get the country back. I think we're at that moment. We're at that pinnacle where the people need to stand up and take the country back. And the way that we make sure the accountability for me comes from complete exposure of every single person that's broken their oath to the Constitution, and then extreme penalty. I mean, you know, we have obviously, we had the Nuremberg trials during the Holocaust, and from the Nuremberg Code, which has been violated. It's sad that it really hasn't been that long, and yet I guess our world leaders forgot that no, you can lose your life for you know, betraying the people and for crimes against humanity. So
for following orders,
yeah, I was just following orders. So can there be accountability? There absolutely. I think we can get accountability. We can get our country back, but I think we have a short window and time frame to do it, and we the people need to stand up and demand the accountability. And part of that accountability, I think it needs to be some real severe penalty for anyone that has broken their oath over these last going on 3 years.
I agree. You know, it's kind of like get tough on fill in the blank that politicians and prosecutors or whatever always talk about that. I think we need to get tough on this kind of thing, that accountability is just squared away. John, no audio.
Good.
You're on mute.
I wanted to make sure I was on mute. I was talking about some super secret stuff.
Okay. All right. So we have a question on election integrity. Have you seen 2,000 Mules?
Yes, I have seen 2,000 Mules, but I say I didn't need to see that or the other rounds of evidence that I've seen to know there was election fraud. All I had to do was go to bed and we had a winner, and then something happened in the middle of the night and we woke up and the election wasn't what it should have been. So yes, to me, it's very clear our elections were stolen. I was not worried about running with the election integrity issue a year and a half ago because I thought there's plenty of time. This will come out. This will be rectified. That is not what has happened. And so what I've been doing, I've done a few different things just as a candidate to try to do my due diligence in the district that I'm running in. There are 3 different counties. So I've been to the supervisor of elections of each of those counties. I've tried to do what I can to hold them accountable, to ask the questions I needed to ask. One thing that changed this year in Florida, in the state of Florida, we have a state statute that allows candidates to designate volunteers to review mail-in ballots.
Which should be that should have been there to begin with.
Yeah, but it's a little, I mean, so my feeling is I don't know that it's actually doing anything from my experience now. I just had my first half hour today where I went in and got to, review signatures. What I will say is I think it's important that we go. I think it's important that we poll watch. I think it's important that every single person volunteer on someone's campaign so that you can review ballots. So you can do that right now, whether it's my campaign or someone else's. You just reach out to the candidate, tell them that, you want to volunteer and you can sign up and do that. I think it's important that we do it. But the questions that I've asked, specifically at the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections office, I haven't liked the answers to a lot of the questions that I've asked. So, to me, it's a little bit of like a dog and pony show where they just they have you come in, they say, here, you can pick from these ballots and we're going to scan them. And you look at the signatures and you say, you want to challenge it or not challenge it. To me, it's not the panacea, not the cure all that we need, but it's something. So I just want to give that to people. That's something that we can do. I know that some people are organizing to be able to watch our mail-in boxes, the actual drop-off boxes. So that's something that people can do too, because remember in the 2,000 Mules, they didn't have all the footage.
Like Wisconsin, there was no footage.
We just don't have it. Now they're by law required to have it, but nothing happens. I mean, to me, that's where people need to start going to jail. What do you mean you don't have the footage? I'm sorry. If I did my job like that, I'd be fired. And you're working for the American people. That should be jail time. What do you mean you don't have footage? So some people are taking it into their own hands, that they're going to be, either filming themselves or just sitting in a car and watching so that they can film if something happens, they can pick their phone up or their camera up. So, we have to start, we are the fourth branch of government. We, the people, we need to start holding that accountability that you're talking about. We have to do it, especially when it comes to the election integrity, because if we don't have election integrity, literally none of it matters. It doesn't matter that we get good candidates in, that we work hard to get these candidates in, if it can just be stolen in the blink of an eye.
Well, okay. Well, there was a guy named Nick Freitas who ran against a lady named Abigail Spanberger. And I read the story and it's oh, Nick Freitas was up. Then they found a flash drive with more votes on it that pit Spanberger over the top. And they just reported that as, hey, look, this is what happened. So I decided I was going to look into it a little bit more than what the media was looking at. And I have the story. It's over at MLN.com. If you search John Crump USB flash drive, you'll find it. And I actually talked to the guy that found the flash drive. And I was like, why? It was mismarked because we were reusing it. It's why were you reusing a flash drive to save money? I'm like, a flash drive is pennies on the dollar, right?
$5, $10.
So I started looking into him, and it turns out that his wife worked on the Spanberger campaign. So the guy that found the flash drive with the votes that put Spanberger over the top after they declared him the winner was actually a paid staffer on the Spanberger campaign.
Oh,
so
not just a volunteer. And did that stand?
Yeah, it's the at the time the Virginia Board of Elections were Democrat controlled, and they decided not to look into it.
Wow.
It's amazing to me because it seems like there is absolutely no penalty for cheating at the ballot box.
Oh, cheating never happens unless it's 2016.
Yeah, but the reason we don't have penalty is because there's no check there. So in other words,
Yeah.
if we have a corrupt supervisor of elections office, well, then our sheriff should come in, right? And he would hold
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
But our sheriffs aren't doing that because they're not oath keepers either. Or we'd be able to
Right.
the people could sue them, and then the judge would hold them accountable. But our judges aren't doing that because they're not oath keepers either. So that's the problem, is that we've come to this place where we didn't realize. I certainly didn't realize we had been so infiltrated that there's more of us, there's more we the people than there are of these corrupt government officials, who are either ignorant or corrupt. But there's no check anywhere in any of the systems. So we have to now take the onus and walk in our own sovereignty that's talked about in our Constitution. We are sovereign, and use that power to push back. Supervisor of elections it's at least in Palm Beach County, we elect the head of the supervisor of elections. So we've got to start like long game. We've got to start looking like, okay, even if this election is corrupted, we need
So the Palm Beach County supervisor is no gem now. The one that she replaced was worse, and
Correct.
DeSantis put this lady in who then changed to become a Democrat.
Yeah, she was appointed, but because of how things happen, but she will be up for election. Like we'll be electing in whoever the next head of supervisor of elections is. So if we don't like who's in there and we don't like the answers we're getting from that person, we need to find somebody that's a real patriot that we can get behind to put in. So that's like the long game. I say the even longer game is we need to have a lot of children and start populating the earth with patriots. But
Right.
I want to bring up, you're talking about checks and balances and how like the sheriff should come in and the courts. You know what checks and balances we might need, and I probably going to get a lot of flack, and somebody's going to cut this out and give it to the left-wing media people that want to tear me down. But we need checks and balances like in the Battle of Athens, Tennessee, where patriots stood up and fought back with firearms against a tyrannical local government and actually won. Right after World War II, Battle of Athens. I'm going to do a short documentary on it.
Well, that sounds interesting. I think
you ever hear of Battle of Athens, Tennessee?
Yep.
Where all the local politicians were fixing the elections. They would take the ballot box into the jailhouse, and then they would come back out, and their candidates would always win. Until like the towns got tired of it, and they surrounded the jail with firearms, and there was a gun battle, and they finally got the ballot boxes back out, and the guys that were always in control were no longer in control. In fact, the sheriff called the governor of Tennessee and asked for the National Guard, and the sheriff and then governor already got word that there's hundreds of patriots with firearms surrounding the jailhouse, and he said, "You're on your own," and hung up.
Well, so that was lucky for them, because what I would say is, yes, our Second Amendment is to overthrow rogue and tyrannical government. We're supposed to have well-regulated militia. I think if we'd actually had well-regulated militia, those lockdowns and mandates, they wouldn't have stood over the last 2 years. So I think we're a little behind the 8 ball. Like that is not an inappropriate use of our Second Amendment, but we at least where I am, I am aware of some militia where I am, but we did not have at the time that this was all going down with extreme government overreach. We did not have well-regulated militia, or this would have never, ever happened. So I think that's the first step, is we need to get back to like, why don't we have organized and well-regulated militia in our state? I think like you're saying, these officials would think twice if they knew that they might be up against a well-regulated militia if they were going to act tyrannically. And at least where I am, I just don't see that at the moment, but I think I am aware that some people are mobilizing in that direction, and they should be. That's our Second Amendment right.
Well, this mobilization came out of nowhere. This was like they said, "Hey, go get your guns and meet at the armory," which was basically the National Guard armory, and then they broke into the National Guard Armory and took all their weapons.
Yeah, but you know what? But that's why they were fortunate as well. Like what you said, I guess, and I'm not familiar with the story, but they the government made a call and they were asking for the UN backup. That is a real threat. So as it stands now, even if we have our well regulated militia, we don't have the same weaponry as our government, and our government has wrongly partnered with people like the UN that they believe that they can just come in and invade the American people. So it's a real consideration, in exercising our Second Amendment right. At the moment, we do not have the same weaponry as our government, which, if anything, instead of petitioning to take away our AR-15s, our congressmen should be going, how do we petition for M16s with regulation in the well-regulated militia? How do we make this a more fair match so that if the people need to rise up against rogue and tyrannical government, it's a fair match? What does that look like?
Well, if you look at what the Congress said yesterday, Boothby, who used to work for Kimber, who's now works for Giffords, said that the semi-automatic AR-15 is more dangerous and more deadly than the M4.
Wow. It's ignorance. It's ignorance. I'm not an expert, clearly.
He is. So I think he was just he was just toting the line. No, he is actually an expert on firearms.
Really?
Yeah, he's just spitting BS. So I was like, then why don't you take our AR-15s and give us your M4s and your M16s? I'll meet you. I'll drive out to whatever military base you want to do the trade.
Well, that's like the incumbent who was speaking about the AR-15 like it was so much more dangerous, but yet served our country as a veteran. So had firearm experience, and anybody that knows anything about firearms, and again, I'm not an expert, understands that the AR is shooting in the same fashion as your handgun. So it's not more dangerous. Right. And when you look at the stats, it's actually not being used as much to kill people. So it's Correct. Just extreme ignorance. And then it's also, like you're saying, the propaganda where this person really knows the truth about the AR-15. And then the misnomer of calling it an assault rifle, that's all done on purpose by somebody that served in the military. You can't tell me that you don't know what AR actually stands for, So it's all on purpose to catch the ignorant, to brainwash us, to keep us fighting with each other. But so many of us are not having it, it gives me hope and encouragement. So I'm very grateful to be on your show with like-minded people, because we want that group to grow. we want to spread the truth, so yeah, that's very disturbing that's coming. Not surprising, but very disturbing that's coming from representatives.
Yeah. Just to let you know, Rich has pulled up a question, so go ahead, Rich.
Yeah. So I guess one last question before we end the show. The question is, should the American people own machine guns without paying exorbitant prices and a tax?
So the tax absolutely should not come from the federal government. So I'm running on federal ticket, so I can only speak, I want to represent the people at the federal level. So I can only speak from that vein. So I don't think there should be any law in any way to prohibit Second Amendment rights. So whatever firearm you're going to own or how much that's going to cost or any taxing should not come from the federal government. So if people decide at their state level that they want regulation around owning a machine gun, then that would need to come from the state. But from the federal level, that's what I'm saying. If anything, our representatives at the federal level should be advocating for the people in their well-regulated militia to have the same weaponry as the government. And if we don't like that, then we need to take those machine guns away from our own government.
You're not saying that the states should ban machine guns. You're saying you're only speaking on the federal issues.
Right. And I
just want to make sure that's clear, that people don't get anything mixed up.
Right. So, but in other words, if the people of a state, if you have the majority of the people of the state that want some type of regulation, states' rights, everything that's not delegated out to the federal government is reserved to the states. I don't want those regulations. I wouldn't be advocating for those regulations. But I just want to be clear, because if a state wants background checks, if enough people in that state, that's what they come up with, that's what they want, they can petition their legislature for that, and also depending on what their state constitution says. But from the
I
federal
would
government,
disagree with you.
Oh, that's
Strongly
okay.
disagree with you.
I'm not a fan of any of those regulations.
No, I would have to strongly disagree with you because it's the Bill of Rights, and you got to remember the Bill of Rights is not only federal. The Bill of Rights highlights what your human rights are. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments is like from God. It's just acknowledging that the government cannot that it's not giving you those rights. It's saying the government is not going to infringe on these rights, but these are your rights, given your inalienable rights, which means no one can take them away, and that would include the state government because they're inalienable. If they come from God, your creator, so no one can take that away. The Bill of Rights is a negative document of liberty, which means it's taken away. It's basically warning
telling the government hands off.
You cannot do this, so don't try. So, and also you got to remember, it says, any rights not delegated to the federal government or the people will go to the states. And the Bill of Rights is rights. It's highlighting rights of the people. So therefore, and historically, if you look at like the Federalist Papers, for example, and also the writings of Madison and Adams, they talk about that the Bill of Rights is the rights reserved for the people. And so I'm not talking about like the 11th through whatever. I'm talking about the first 10, the Bill of Rights. It's reserved for the people. So even the states cannot infringe on those rights.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So let me actually I'm going to read the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
Or to the people.
Right.
Or it's not and the people, it's or to the people.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. So at the state level, I was up at Tallahassee for my state as a person petitioning for constitutional carry. So that's how I feel. That's what I'm petitioning for as the people, as a person. But what I'm saying is, obviously, well-regulated militia, if the people or the state want that part of the regulation to be that, this is the group of men. Let's say they want only men to be in the militia. They want this group of men to be there.
One more time. You got to look at regulated in the context of history. You're looking at it through the lens of what regulated means now. Regulated back then, the word regulated had nothing to do with regulations back then. If you look at the historical meaning of regulated back from 1787, regulated means like well trained, well equipped, like you're ready.
Yes.
It doesn't mean regulation at all.
Right. So well equipped. What does well equipped mean? Maybe the people want to define what well equipped means. So what kind of training? So you have to go through X, Y, and Z training.
No, it doesn't mean training. A well-regulated militia means well equipped. It has nothing to do with mandatory anything. It's like,
I didn't say mandatory. What I'm saying is that whatever's not been outlined clearly, right? The people have leeway to have things look like what they want them to look like without infringing on the other rights, which is why red flag laws, whether the people want them or the state wants them, those violate the Constitution as well. So nobody gets to have red flag laws and call them constitutional. What I'm saying is there could be a regulation, there could be something that the people call for that is around firearms that is beyond the Second Amendment. I'm not saying I know what that is or that I'm advocating for that.
There's not. If you read the Federalist Papers, that's if you look at the historical context, the actual. Let's go to Bruin. The actual test in the historical context of the Second Amendment. That means you got to go to the Federalist Papers. You have to go to the Anti-Federalist Papers. You have to go to the writings of Madison, who actually wrote the amendment. You have to go to like all those writings. It's not in there. I mean, if you read that, they specifically say that no government, state or federal, can regulate your right to bear arms. and the Federalist Papers and anti-Federalist Papers are extremely clear about that. So there's no, I mean, courts have tried to do it and states have done it. But if you actually take the writings, and you're a constitutionalist, right? So you believe in what the actual
Each
text
state
says.
has their own constitution as well. So that's what I'm saying is that
No, but that's the federal constitution is the supreme law of the land.
I agree.
And
I agree, but
the federal constitution actually says that this is an inalienable right, that the federal government can't do this, but it also reserves the right to the people. That's what the or is. It's not and, it's or, the states or the people. And
Yes,
the first 9 amendments are powers to the people and not the states.
okay.
Because if what you're saying is right, then that means that states can pass hate speech laws, that states can ban ban different things in papers. The states can ban Bibles. The states can say, "Hey, we are banning all Muslims. We don't want Muslims in the state. We're banned." And Thomas said the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. So therefore, if states are not allowed to ban Muslims living in their states, or not allowed to ban Jewish people in their states, or not allowed to ban Bibles or the press or TV or whatever, they're not allowed to ban free assembly, then they're not allowed to be in
So
power.
my point is that there could be laws that are passed by the state and ultimately the people that do not violate the well-regulated or well-equipped militia that have to do. Well, for example, if you have, if you've been convicted of violent felonies and then people aren't allowed to have firearms anymore, that might be something that the people want that doesn't necessarily have to violate the state or the people being able to keep a well-equipped militia.
I think it does.
Okay, well, we can agree to disagree, but I just want to be clear that, like, at the federal level, there should be absolutely nothing coming down to infringe. And then I'm not saying that states or the people have a right to infringe on that well-equipped militia, but if the people are calling for some type of measure, it's possible there could be a measure that doesn't violate the, Fourth Amendment, First Amendment, Second Amendment, and that the people do have, and the states do have that sovereignty to explore some of that. I am obviously, as a person, I am heavy on less regulation and heavy on constitutional carry. That's what I've, been up at Tallahassee petitioning for. But I just think that there could be room for the people decide if you've, murdered somebody, you don't get to have a firearm anymore. I think there is room for the people to decide that.
Yeah, I can't get behind that.
That's okay.
Sorry, Melissa.
Just be happy I'm not running as a state rep, but you would be hard pressed to find. I think maybe Anthony Sabatini may be the only state rep I know in Florida that's really pushing for things like constitutional carry. So I would say we need more people like him in our state.
Yeah. And, the last time we had you on, one of the questions was about red flag laws in the state of Florida, and now we have federal red flag laws. So bit of a difference.
Period. Red flag laws are unconstitutional, period, because, due process. And I mean, it hits on more than just our Second Amendment. So,
correct.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to have to get out of here because we're already 8 minutes over.
It was good, though. I think it was a very good conversation to have. I'm glad we had it.
All
so,
right,
Melissa, how can people support you?
Well, we are a grassroots campaign. I'm not taking any PAC money, dark money, big money. So if people want to help us by getting the word out, just sharing social media, or if they want to help with marketing materials, they can pay for the marketing materials directly. They don't even have to donate money to the campaign. That's considered an in-kind donation. And all of my information is on my website, melissamartz.com. I'm very easy to get in touch with if anyone wants to vet me or ask me a question. Hopefully you can tell that I'm not just going to talk to make people feel good, but I'm going to tell you how I really feel. And yeah, melissamartz.com. We've got less than a month to Election Day. And I won't be voting to take away our AR-15s.
All right, that works for me. All right, guys, that is it for today. My name is John Crump, and you can support me by going to johncrump.locals.com. I'm going to relaunch my Patreon because I keep on getting Patreons, and I don't know how to shut it down. So I might as well just copy everything over from Patreon and post it from Locals and post over the Patreon as well. You can oh, by the way, I got a John Crump news too. You can support Rich by going to flyingrich.locals.com. And with that, you can also follow him on my MySpace and on Instagram at flyingrich_official, and check out his YouTube page at Flying Rich. We will be back next week on Monday. I am thinking about doing something special. And doing a Ask Me Anything on my live channel and my news channel, but I haven't decided yet. We'll decide. We'll see. Talk to you about it, Rich. And with that, we are out of here. I love you guys very much, and I'm going to hit the end button now. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.